I'm Diana, and I'm one of Eloisa's good friends. I'm also the owner of Miriam's Hemp. So my mom was diagnosed with a brain tumor in January of 2013. Well, her type of brain tumor, it's a glioblastoma. It's always stage 4, and it's considered terminal. I went into panic mode, of course. I came across the particular study that they had done with the same type of brain tumor that my mom had. And so I went to Facebook. I found this group, and it was called the Cannabis Oil Success Stories.
And there were cancer patients there?
People were in there talking about cannabis oil, started making the oil for my mom in our kitchen. As time went on, she was doing better. Her tumor stopped growing. By the end of March, we had her doctor's appointment where they wanted to do an MRI. The tumor had shrunk so much. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
We were stunned. Obviously, when I shared that, I remember on social media, it kind of blew up. I was just getting so many people asking me for help to make this oil. And that's how we started. So we started off as a medical marijuana collective. Now we were getting real research. It wasn't just stoners using it.
And then now you not only have the oil, you have balms. And I didn't realize it was 4 years because I do see you a lot. Every time I go to Vegas, I have to see her.
That's true.
So it feels like more like 1 or 2 years, but 4 years.
I know.
Wow.
It went by really fast. It's this April will be 4 years.
Wow.
That I've been there.
I want everyone to know about Miriam's Hemp and how that, organically came onto your lap.
So my mom was diagnosed with a brain tumor in January of 2013. And at the time I was a makeup artist and hairstylist. And my mom and I actually used to work together because she was a makeup artist.
Wow.
As well. And so it was just all of a sudden, from one day, well, it wasn't really from one day to another. There was, for a few months, we were already noticing things with her. But
did she find out when she was already stage 4 or?
Well, her type of brain tumor, it's a glioblastoma. It's always stage 4.
Oh.
So in some people, there are some brain tumors where they'll start at a different stage and then they'll eventually kind of grow. But with her, it was stage 4 from the beginning.
Wow.
She might have had it for years. Who knows? You never know their how those tumors work. But yeah, she was stage 4 from the very beginning. And it's considered terminal. And in her case, it was worse because it was inoperable. Sometimes, depending on the location, they're able to remove the tumor. So a lot of people that can get the tumor removed, they tend to live longer because even though it does tend to grow back, they can get it taken out. And then and I know a few people that are still alive to this day that, they just go through life having brain surgeries and having it removed and
piece by piece. But it sounds like hers was like so metastasized, so big.
It wasn't just that, it was the location. It was in her left frontal lobe. So it's a very delicate area. Even after her biopsy, she stopped talking.
Oh.
And she stopped her motor, she couldn't talk. She couldn't for a little while. Her left side was really, because that your left side controls your right side of the body. So it was on her left side. So her right side, it like just became limp. She was dragging her feet.
Oh.
So that was the beginning. And so what happened?
Was she on hospice immediately or?
No, not right away. But they did tell us that she would probably only live 3 to 6 months. And that's if the chemo worked, because sometimes the chemo doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so immediately I went into panic mode, of course, because it's just a shocking, like, what? My mom's going to die? Like, no, this isn't how.
Yeah.
And she was young, when she got diagnosed, she was 57.
Oh, wow.
So she was pretty young. It's crazy to think that when she got diagnosed, she was only 10 years older than me now. So that's so
scary.
Crazy. It's scary. It's crazy to think that. And so, I immediately started researching clinical trials. I remember sitting in her emergency room, in her room, because they immediately, when you get a diagnosis like that in the ER,
she's admitted.
Immediately taking you in. They put you in a room. They do try to get you into surgery right away.
Yeah.
And so I remember sitting on the floor with her in her room, and I was starting to research clinical trials.
Mm-hmm.
And back then there wasn't much for brain cancer. There is now more, but back then there wasn't that much. And so, people said, look up clinical trials, look up this, see if you can take her here, take her there. See, when that happens, people start giving you their opinions and do this and do that. So, and my mom believed in, my mom was a very big believer in herbal medicine.
Like homeopathic.
Very, yeah. She actually had a doctor in El Monte that I used to go to with her. And this lady, she's an MD, but she also does like naturopathic medicine.
Yeah.
And so my mom, for example, got rid of her fibroids by using herbs and stuff like that. Wow. Like she had issues with fibroids. So I knew my mom believed in natural medicine. And so I started researching naturopathic remedies, stuff like that. And I don't know how I came across a study that was done in Spain. They were studying the effects of THC on brain tumors. And there was a particular study that they had done with the same type of brain tumor that my mom had, where they were injecting mice with the tumor.
Yeah.
And then they were injecting the tumor with the THC. And they were seeing that it was killing the tumor.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, there's something here. This is the same tumor my mom has. And so I went to Facebook because I knew Facebook had groups for different types of cancers. Yeah. And so I don't know how I found this group, and it was called the Cannabis Oil Success Stories. And at that time, it had maybe a couple hundred people in it.
And there were cancer patients there?
Well, it was everybody. People were in there talking about cannabis oil and all this stuff. So this was before CBD was even a thing.
Yeah.
And I went into the group. I introduced myself and I said, this is, and so immediately people were so helpful and so nice. And they were like, you got to do this and there was a girl who's still alive to this day. And her parents stopped chemo after the first round on her. And she's kept her brain tumor away since then using cannabis oil.
Wow.
I forget her name right now, but she was, as time went on, she kind of became famous. Like she was on the news and she helped change the laws for, I believe she was one of the kids that they used a lot. And I don't quote me on this, but it might be like Washington or Oregon, one of those states where her story was used in order to help change the laws, the medical marijuana laws. This was years later.
Okay.
But I know she's still alive. So I actually got in touch with her mom and I said, what are you doing for her? And so at the time she said, we're making this oil for her and I'm giving her this much and it's working for her. She's not doing chemo. She's not doing radiation, nothing else. So I was like,
was she doing herbs also?
She was just taking the oil.
Oh, wow.
And what happened with her was they did like the first round of chemo on her and it was horrible.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to do it. And so the parents just said, okay, let's just go full force with this. And yeah, I mean, and she had a different type of tumor. She was at the time, she's probably like 8 or 9. She was like a younger girl. Okay. But it was a different tumor than my mom. It wasn't a glioblastoma. So obviously different tumors respond differently.
Maybe not on her frontal lobe?
I don't remember where it was, but it was a different tumor that obviously responded a lot quicker and more effectively. So I just literally, I did everything the mom told me to do. So they sent me some videos on YouTube video of this guy making this oil.
Mm-hmm. You got it from him?
I got it from her, from the mom.
Okay.
This is how you make the oil. Just follow what this guy does in the video. And so I did. So initially we started making the oil for my mom in our kitchen.
Wow.
And is basically you get marijuana, the buds and pretty much everything except for the stems. You throw it in a coffee pot. You throw 99% alcohol in there. Basically like moonshine.
Oh,
like,
okay.
You're not really supposed to drink it. And you put it in the coffee pot and you boil it for hours and hours. And eventually the alcohol evaporates and you're left with this oil. Then you have to like filter out the leftover. It's a whole process, but it takes like all day.
Oh.
And so, and it makes your house, can you just imagine boiling marijuana for hours in your house? Like it stinks really bad.
Yeah.
So I was doing that for her, giving her the oil. And then at the same time, we started the chemo and the radiation for her simultaneously.
Okay.
And I was only giving her a little bit, but as time went on, you know, she was doing better. She was doing good. She, got a little bit more of her function back in her arm. Her, you know, she wasn't dragging her leg anymore. But it's because obviously between the radiation, the chemo, and maybe probably the oil, her tumor stopped growing. So it was growing really rapidly initially.
Yeah.
And then it stopped growing. So she was okay for a few months. We were good with her. You know,
her speech came back?
No, that never came back, unfortunately. That was really sad. That was very hard to accept. Like your mom can't talk anymore.
Can she communicate, like write?
No, she couldn't write. She would scribble.
Oh, because of motor function.
Yeah. But she could, the only thing she could say was yes or no in Spanish.
Okay.
There was certain things that she could, she could say. And I remember we got her to say certain things and it was like old memories. So it was almost like her long-term memory was like, it was really weird because she was able to say certain things, but not, but yeah, you couldn't have a conversation with her, but there was ways that you can communicate with her.
Yeah.
And so as time went on, so we did one round of radiation and then a couple rounds of the chemo. So then October, so this was January, and by October, her doctors wanted to give her a break from the chemo. And so that kind of freaked me out. I didn't want to stop because at least she was stable and things were good. And they said, well, you know, she needs a break. We can't keep her on this forever because it's not good for you. And we want to try this other treatment called Avastin. But it's very expensive and your insurance takes a while to approve it. And so I got scared to stop the chemo. And so what I did is I went back, I remember now, her name's Alyssa.
Okay.
I went back to Alyssa's mom and I said, you know, what would you do in this situation? She said, just ramp up the oil. Cause I was only giving her a little bit because of course it'd make her really high.
She needs it more now than ever.
Yeah. So she said, ramp it up. Just, that's all you can do. Just ramp up the oil. So in October, they did an MRI and the tumor hadn't really changed much from January. It was still kind of just stable.
Yeah.
But we wanted it to shrink, obviously. But what happened was, so from October to the following March, no chemo, no radiation. I was just giving her a ton of oil. A lot.
Like 4 times a day?
About 4 times a day because I was trying to split it up. But I was giving her, I mean, it was like about almost 2.5 grams of oil.
Wow.
I mean, this is like a crazy amount of THC, probably like 800 milligrams of THC.
Yeah.
I mean, that will knock
anyone out.
Mm-hmm. But I gradually kind of over time brought her up to that amount. Yeah. But she was still pretty like high, but honestly, I didn't care. As long as my mom could live, I didn't care. Mm-hmm. And she was still, you know, she could talk. She was just always like sleepy and, you know, but what happened in March is by the end of March, we had her doctor's appointment where they wanted to do an MRI.
Yeah.
And what was really nice between that time of October and March is her health, she just looked healthy because she wasn't on chemo, she wasn't on radiation, she looked good, you know, and I would say that was probably one of the best months that we had with her during her illness. Was when we only had her on the oil.
Wow.
And in March, the end of March, we did an MRI, a follow-up MRI. The tumor had shrunk so much. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
We were stunned. We knew it hadn't grown because she wasn't really having a lot of seizures. She wasn't getting worse. She was fine. But the shrinkage was incredible. the doctors were stunned. They were like, okay. I mean, they even tried to say, because they couldn't explain it, right? Like how, if we stopped chemo in October, she hadn't done radiation, in which we only did 1 round of radiation.
Yeah.
That was done in June. How is this shrinking? They knew what I was doing. The doctors, luckily, one of her oncologists was a younger guy, and I think he was more open to it.
Yeah.
And so their explanation was, well, maybe the chemo still works in the body over time. And I'm like, but your body tries to get rid of poison. Your body doesn't hold on to poison. It tries to get rid of it. How is chemo still lingering in her body?
Yeah.
For 6 months later? Like, that didn't make sense.
Yeah. I think technically it's 90 days.
Right. So it just didn't make sense to me that it would still keep killing her tumor months later. I've never heard of that. So, but the doctor said, you know what? They said, we don't know anything about this, but whatever you're doing for her, keep doing it.
Okay.
I have a side-by-side of her tumor, a screenshot of the before and after. And when you look at it, you're like,
wow.
And you could see the dates, because one says, one's dated in October of 2013. The other one is March 31st of 2014.
Yeah.
And it was pretty incredible. And that's kind of when, and so, obviously when I shared that, I remember on social media, it kind of blew up. Like it got shared, it got reshared by hundreds of people. It just kind of blew up.
Yeah.
Like it went a little viral, I guess. Back then, when I mean, there was Instagram, but there wasn't like how it is now.
Yeah.
But it kind of, that post that I made of her kind of went a little bit viral. And what had happened was, by that point, people were already coming to me asking me, what are you doing for your mom? And so then, especially once they saw what it was doing to her, they were like, that's when it really kind of exploded. I was getting...
You showed the before and after
I had
scans.
A before and after of her. I have a before and after MRI.
Wow.
And it was just incredible because everyone knew her story. Everyone knew that we weren't doing chemo during the before and after time.
Crazy.
So it was pretty incredible. And so that's when I was getting a lot. I mean, even before that, I was getting a lot of people asking me, what are you doing? Like, can I buy this from you? Can you show me how to make it? And I couldn't legally sell it to anybody.
Yeah.
Because back then we didn't even have medical marijuana.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have recreational marijuana in California. We only had medical under the Prop 215, which you had to be a medical marijuana collective to sell marijuana and to make it and sell it to people. And people had to have recommendations from a doctor. And so, so I couldn't sell it, and most people couldn't make it at home because, I mentioned the process. It takes all day. It makes your whole house smell. Your neighbors can smell it. So for most people, it wasn't feasible to make it themselves. And I was just getting so many people asking me for help to make this oil. And so at the time, I went to Jeff, who I own the company with, and I said, I showed him my messenger and all the messages I was getting. And I said, I think there's something here. I think that we can help other people, that are in the situation that they are. And so he was a little like hesitant. Jeff is very straight edge. He's very like, I don't know, that's illegal and da-da-da. And I'm like, no, you can do it legally if you go and
apply.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I said, let me find a lawyer and we'll talk to a cannabis lawyer. And luckily I found one here in Orange County. And we went and consulted with him, kind of went back and forth on like the pros and cons. And, it was just basically, if we followed everything by the rule, we could technically still get in trouble because federally it wasn't legal
yet.
And so, but we just went ahead. I mean, we just knew like there was something there. And that's how we started. So we started off as a medical marijuana collective.
Yeah.
And
so to help your mom's quality of life and kind of like shrink her cancer. Wow. So the story behind it is the miraculous, benefits that your mom got from it. And then you went through the legal process. And then what year was that you started Miriam's?
as actually before we even got that MRI result from her, we started it because we founded the collective in December of 2013. So we had already started doing that because, like I said, even before sharing that story with her, people were already kind of hearing about marijuana and cancer, and there was already a lot of research being done in Israel and in Spain, which is the study that I found came from Spain, which after the marijuana exploded, those researchers became pretty famous in our industry. But there was already a lot of studies. There was a lot of research going on. So people were already kind of getting wind like, hey, there's these researchers in Israel and Spain that are looking into this. There was a big company in Europe called GW Pharmaceuticals that were also conducting studies on cannabis. So there was already a little bit of buzz going on about it. And so that's why people were becoming interested, because now we were getting real research. It wasn't just stoners using it. And, now there was like, okay, there's clinical something studies. Here. Yeah, now there's something here. So people were really becoming interested in it. And that's
12 years.
12 years.
Wow. Do you guys celebrate anniversary?
We do. We typically celebrate her birthday is usually when we kind of do something for her. We don't really celebrate. Well, we sometimes we do kind of announce because it's usually in December. It was like the beginning of December of that year. I think that we opened up the collective.
That's so nice that she was comfortable in the very end.
Yeah.
Wow. And then now you've grown so much in the 12 years. You not only have the oil, you have balms. Tell us what you have.
Yeah. So really it was something that we kind of really got, like I said, because of my mom, we kind of got thrown into this industry that I was never planning to be a part of. I just got thrown into it. But really what happened is once we started the collective, I started connecting with a doctor, and I was sending her because we used to call them patients, to her to get a medical marijuana recommendation. And she was the only doctor at the time that wrote medical marijuana recommendations for children. Because keep in mind, this was 2013. There was no CBD laws. There was nothing that was not existing.
And now
all.
They don't need that, right?
They should get it, especially for minors.
Okay.
Because you might still get someone at a school that will report to CPS. And if you have a minor, even if you're giving them CBD, when people ask us, we still tell them you should still get a recommendation.
Yeah.
That way it's something that's signed off by a doctor in case you do get, there's been cases where kids accidentally get high and they go to school high. And
I see.
We've seen it where CPS has gotten involved, especially not as much now.
Yeah.
But it used to happen a lot in the beginning.
Yeah. Times have changed.
Definitely. Yeah.
Wow.
But, with minors, you always want to be careful.
Okay. And they're also now using CBD for massage. I see it. Like when we go get a massage, they offer that. You have balms for local.
We do. The muscle cream as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Over time, we just came out with different products. So it was more of, like I said, we started connecting with a doctor, and she had a waiting list of kids. So once the CBD the CNN special came out, and the whole Sanjay Gupta thing, it really exploded at that point. And this doctor that we still currently work with quite a bit, she said, I really need to, I have 600 kids on a waiting list for CBD because they saw the special, and all these kids are epileptic. And they're
it's great for autism too, right?
Oh yeah. I would say autism is probably, at this point, autism is our biggest, I guess if you have a pie chart and you put the different types of ailments that people use our products for, autism would probably be the biggest part of that pie.
What's the second and third?
Well, I say autism and epilepsy. Sometimes they're mixed. Sometimes kids have both.
Yeah.
So autism, epilepsy, cancer, and then sleep issues, very big.
Okay.
Pain, anxiety, and then you have a lot of other little things like
injuries
or skin conditions like rosacea,
It's good
things
for
like
rosacea.
Oh yeah,
like topical,
or yeah, we've had people that
the
use
drops.
it. Both. I mean, it kind of depends, but some people use it topical, some people use the drops. So, but I honestly, there's so many different things that people use it for that. It's almost like it's so versatile.
It's in drinks now.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say definitely autism is probably our biggest customer base that we have, and that's due mostly because there's a really big autism group on Facebook that has like 40,000 members.
Yeah.
Excuse me, and it's a very well organized group. I'm good friends with the ladies that founded it. And we're one of the companies that they only have like maybe 4 or 5 companies that they recommend to the families, and we're one of them.
Nice. So what do they see? What kind of changes? Positive
so
changes?
Much. I mean, there's so many different things. A lot of these kids have so many issues: sleeping issues, eating issues, behavioral issues. Some of them, like I said, are epileptic. Some of them are epileptic with autism, with Down syndrome, with so many things. Like, so a lot of them have like really rare conditions, really rare seizures. There's so much. Like, I feel so sorry for some of these parents. Sometimes I have to deal with so much, and sometimes that's just one kid that has everything. We have a couple kids like that, but mainly. I think behavioral issues are one of the biggest things, especially when the kids are bigger and older. I mean, I've seen some moms with black eyes.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it can get pretty bad.
Anxiety and the combativeness.
So it kind of helps calm them down. We have some kids that a lot of them are nonverbal.
Okay.
And so we've had more than one family report that their kids start speaking and talking or saying certain words. We've had some families report that they just, especially with epilepsy, because some of the drugs, as I'm sure you're familiar with,
side effects,
right? They kind of make them like zombies. They're so out of it that once they're able to wean off of these medications, so that's probably a really big thing, is weaning off a lot of the medications. They use a lot of not just CBD, but really it could be a combination of our products, where they'll take them off of some really strong barbiturate, right? Is that what they're called?
Yes.
And that makes them really drowsy or just really out of it, and so they start seeing the kids they start seeing their personalities. Yeah. Like you have to realize that some of these kids are born with epilepsy or they're born with autism, right? So
that medication gives them like a fog and it kind of clears it up when you stop taking the medication.
Right. And so a lot of these parents, one of the things, when this is probably one of the best things to hear, is when the parents say, my child has been on Keppra or whatever medication for epilepsy since he or she was born, and have never seen her act like a normal kid because she was always medicated. Yeah. And, once we were able to finally wean them off, we see their personality. And it wasn't until years later that they're seeing their child's actual personality come out and act, they act like normal kids. Yeah. So that's probably a really big thing is when they're able to wean the kids off of so many medications. Yeah. And just use the CBD. That's probably the best like success story that you hear.
That must make you feel good.
It does. Yeah, it really does, because it makes me feel like and I always say this, that what we went through with my mom wasn't in vain. There was a reason for it. And unfortunately, it was a very painful time to deal with that with her. It was very, very difficult on all of us, but at least something good came out of it. At least we were able to help people, and still to this day, families are able to use these products and not have to only depend on pharmaceuticals. There's another alternative.
You're very lucky, because my mom passed away from cancer also, but she was 52, and CBD was not available.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 2005.
Yeah.
So, that might have helped her, but she immediately went on hospice, and it was actually lung cancer that metastasized to the brain. And they also gave her 6 months. She was living in Japan. She came and I took care of her. Darn.
I know. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that you made your mom super comfortable, because that's the most important thing. When they're leaving, you don't want them in pain. You don't want them suffering. So, wow. I bet that Facebook group is huge.
Oh yeah, now it has. I don't go into it that much.
Was it 40,000 back then?
No. When I found it, it was only a few hundred because this was not known. Now it has well over 100,000 people in it for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely grew, especially when everything became more, the news was talking about it, and you were hearing about, you were having doctors now talk about it, and researchers, and
especially naturopathic doctors, the NDs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They believe in that stuff.
Yeah, we work with quite a few of them that we have a pretty big net. So since when we switched over to a hemp company, we were able to start shipping out of state, and that was really nice because we were able to expand our reach to a lot of other doctors. And
switch to hemp from what?
From we used to only have just high THC products.
Oh, okay.
But our CBD line, like our 25, our 50, and our 100 milligram tinctures that we make, those have always been the same even before. So what we did is we got rid of the THC line, unfortunately. And that was hard because we had a lot of our customers that used a lot of the THC products. And especially like a lot of the autism families, a lot of the kids respond really well to THC.
Oh, I see.
And so they need it.
Is it because the government still has not passed?
Well, when recreational came into California in 2016, unfortunately, it kicked out a lot of companies like us because you were having huge companies with millions and millions of dollars coming in, kind of taking over the space. But they also, the way that they made the system made it very difficult and hard for a company like us to survive.
Yeah.
Just because before we were vertically integrated, right? So we grew, we extracted, we manufactured, we did everything ourselves. When the new laws came in, you couldn't do that anymore. So you had to find someone to manufacture for you. You had to find someone to grow for you, or unless you had licenses to do all of those things, then you could do it. But who's going to have the money? You'd have to be really rich to be able to have all that. And just the way that they set up the system, it wasn't set up for a small company like ours. And so just to kind of give you an idea, a product that we had that was $30, like our THC tincture, that was a 10 milligram tincture back then, we sold it for $30 through our collective. When the new law came into place, and now there was dispensaries. So now you had to, and there was more control, there was more, which was good, but it also hurt companies like us because now a product that we were selling for $30, once it went through that whole chain of command, through the grower, through the manufacturer, through the distributor, into the dispensary, it went from $30 to $100.
Wow.
And that was just us breaking even. That wasn't even us profiting anything. So it didn't make sense for us to to stay in the market because there was no way that our customers who were used to paying $30 for a product that they're using for their kids, they're depending on it for their life. I mean, sometimes they were using a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes these kids take a ton of this product. There's no way that they could afford $100 tincture that they're used to paying $30.
Yeah.
And so
when you switched over to hemp, do you feel like that works just as well?
There's some products that were able to, I guess some people were able to switch to some products, and some people had to find other companies over time. They had to find other brands that were licensed that became licensed. Or to be honest with you, a lot of people went underground. A lot of people were just buying it from
like
people that weren't like black market, because buying it from a dispensary was too expensive. And unfortunately, a lot of the medical companies that initially became licensed and put their products in dispensaries went out of business.
I see.
At this point in time, you probably won't find a lot of the companies that were around back when we were around still on the shelves. Because recreational kind of took over all of that. I mean, you might, but it's very expensive.
Yeah. And nowadays, is it true you don't need a medical card anymore? Is it officially?
Well, it's recreational, so technically you don't. But I think if you're 20 under, I'm not sure.
You have to be 21.
Yeah, but you do get I believe if you have a recommendation. I don't know if this still is true. I don't pay attention too much to the California laws anymore because we're not in that space anymore. Yeah. But from what I understand back then, if you had your recommendation, you'd get a discount, or you don't get charged the additional tax.
I see.
So there was like the regular tax, and then there was another tax that was like 15%. I don't know, something like that. I think.
And it's more lenient in Vegas.
Well, Vegas is. I'm not sure what we're not under the cannabis laws. We're hemp, so we don't have. Yeah, it's two separate. Like entities, I guess.
That's good.
So each state is different. So each state has their own medical marijuana laws. Each state has. Some states are not medical marijuana. Some states allow only CBD. So it's a little bit different now.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we miss you.
Thank you.
You used to have a warehouse in San Clemente, right?
Yes.
Is it San Clemente?
Yeah.
And then I think the main reason for the move was, the California laws and the taxes.
Well,
everything's a little
bit
easier in Vegas.
Yeah.
Do you call Vegas your home, or do you want to come back?
I call Vegas home.
It took you a while to.
It did. I hated it at first.
Yeah, I think the first year you were just like coming every other week.
No, I was coming every weekend.
Yeah.
I was pretty much only working in Vegas. And Thursday night, 5:00, I was on the road back here.
Yeah.
I hated Vegas.
She went through an adjustment phase.
But no, I got used to it now, and I really love it. And it's funny because now that I've now there's a lot of people moving to Vegas because of you could still buy homes really cheap. It's growing.
The
tax,
new sports teams.
Yeah, no sales, no state income tax. So that's really big for a lot of business owners.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people kind of go through what I went, and then now they love it.
Yeah.
Everyone that I know that has moved there, they're like, no, I love it now. And I'm like, I do too. I went through the same thing. Like I hated it at first, and now I love it.
And you're used to the weather now.
I'm not. The heat is kind of crazy sometimes, but
yeah.
But what's nice is there's everywhere you go, there's air conditioning, and air conditioning bills are cheap out there. I mean, and it's not like here. It's not like running your air conditioning. I don't know. It's much cheaper.
Everything's cheaper in Vegas.
Yeah, it's
rent. Houses.
It's still a little bit. Oh, yeah. I mean, things are kind of going up for sure.
I hope salary is.
I think it's about this. I think it's probably comparable, but you also don't get state income tax. So that's a huge thing.
That is
for
huge.
a lot of people.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
but no, I would love to live in California. I don't. It's just in my industry, it wouldn't make sense to bring the business back here.
Well, it's
if you're a business owner, it just doesn't make sense to live here.
True, that's true.
It just doesn't.
It's okay. You come visit us. You come visit your sisters.
I do.
They're both here. I don't think they'll ever leave.
I don't know.
They had the opportunity to go with you to Vegas.
One of them did.
One of them.
When she used to work for me.
She's like, nope.
Yeah. No, she's actually mentioned that she would probably move there.
Yeah. Now that she's seen you adjust, she probably thinks it's not that bad. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't mind moving there.
Yeah, I like it. There's so much to do. Honestly, there's so much to do, not just like the casinos and the partying. I mean, that part, what's really nice is restaurants are so, you're a foodie.
Yeah.
You definitely would love that going, you'd have every restaurant you could think of.
There's a saying that it would take you 365 days to try every restaurant in Vegas.
Probably. Oh, yeah.
Probably true.
I think the Strip alone has over 6,000, just the Strip alone. But then there's tons of restaurants outside of the Strip. So it's cool. There's a lot of experiences there. Like there's a lot of like really cool things to do.
Concerts.
Concerts.
You go to a lot.
I love concerts. So that's one thing I do love.
Yeah.
And I live right by the stadium. So that's pretty cool. I do love that. So yeah, I think, you know, just having the accessibility of if you're bored, there's always something to do. It's kind of nice.
That is nice. And now they have In-N-Out. So what the heck?
They've always had In-N-Out. They've had In-N-Out for years.
Well, okay.
You mean the big one that they're building?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, but they've always had In-N-Out.
Really?
Yeah. They've had it there for years.
I
the one by my house has been there for years.
Yeah. Well, maybe like 10 years ago it wasn't there, I want to say. Because there was huge excitement. Oh my God, they're making In-N-Out.
Yeah.
That just tells you how old I am. Thank you for coming. Tell everybody your website.
So the website is miriamshemp.com. Our Instagram is miriams_hemp.com.
How do you spell that?
MYRIAMS.
Okay. Your mom's name, right?
HEMP. Yeah.
HEMP.
My mom was Miriam.
Yes. Wow. She's so lucky to have a daughter like you. You're the oldest of two.
I am.
They're twins.
Three. Well, my sisters are twins.
That's right. They're twins. You did a really good job taking care of your mom.
Thank you.
I commend you for this company. Gosh, thank you for being here.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'll continue to visit you in Vegas, and then let's do this again.
Yeah, for sure.
Where do you see your company in 5 years?
I'm not sure.
Any goals?
I mean, we would love to expand, you know, be able to expand our product line. But we have a lot of red tape when it comes to all the time. It's hard because we experience a lot of red tape, particularly with the laws. And with that, the advertising is really hard for us. Social media advertising, Google advertising, any of that stuff, you have red tape. You can't do this, you can't do that. Your ads get taken down. So it's hard to be like, oh, I want to grow and do this and that because of the fact that a lot of that is marketing, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to put your company out there and advertise it. And so advertising is really hard for us. That's probably the biggest struggle that we have. And so the only way that we're able to do that is just come out with new products, advertise that, reach out to a lot of medical professionals.
Keep it clinical.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that just gain more recognition within the medical community. We already
referrals.
Have. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of nice because we already have that. But it'd be nice to kind of just keep growing that. And hopefully at some point, the whole advertising can be a little bit easier for us, because in that way, that would be really helpful for us to grow.
Yeah. I forgot to ask you, are you in the works of gummies?
Actually, we just got put in touch with somebody today. We have looked at it before. We've played around with a couple recipes. There was just some logistical things that we couldn't really make work. Primarily as the companies that we were finding that, because we can't make them ourselves, but we have the recipe that we want to use. We don't have the space in our warehouse for that. You need a whole kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah, you need a whole kitchen for that.
Your warehouse is so big.
It is, but we don't have. We already utilize a whole space for other things. But gummies are one that we've always wanted to do. We came out with we had a chemist come up with a recipe, and it's a really good one. But the problem we were having is the companies that could make it for us, their minimums were ridiculous.
Oh, I see.
They wanted you to buy like 1 million pieces, and you know, it's like gummies don't.
Huge investment.
It's a huge investment, and you don't know how quickly they're going to sell, and you can't have all this stock of.
And there's an expiration.
Yeah, because they're organics, they're not going to last very long, and so hopefully this company that I actually just got put in touch with today, we've heard that they could potentially work with us and not require
Nice.
such high minimum. So if that works out, then that will probably, hopefully, be something that we can come out with.
Yeah, this is good news.
Yeah, because gummies are so popular from the beginning.
They're
People
just
have
easy
always
to pop in. Yeah.
Yeah, and people love them. So
Yeah. Extra.
that would be definitely something that I would love to make.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know.
I will, for sure.
I'll try it. Thank you, everyone. Thanks. I'm so glad you met Diane today, and thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Yay.